The cold stairs bit into my back as I tumbled down, my pregnant belly leading the fall. At the top, my husband stood silhouetted against the hallway light, his words still echoing, "Look what you made me do." That was the moment I knew one of us wasn't going to survive this marriage. But before I begin my story, let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is. I just want to know I'm not alone in this, and if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing. It helps give me the strength to speak my truth. Now let's get into my story. I am Sarah. I am pregnant, and I live in a tense household. My husband, Mike, often makes me feel small. He has a way of twisting my words and turning my feelings against me. I often walk on eggshells trying to avoid his anger. Mike was charming when we first met. He made me laugh and feel special. But as time went on, things changed. The laughter faded and the tension grew. He would criticize me for small things. If I burned dinner, he would say I was useless. If I forgot to do a chore, he would shout. It left me feeling alone and scared. One night, things escalated during an argument. I do not even remember what we were fighting about. He was furious and I was scared. I tried to explain myself, but my words only made him angrier. In a moment of rage, he pushed me. I lost my balance and fell down the stairs. I remember the cold grip of fear as I tumbled down. When I reached the bottom, pain shot through my body. I lay there unable to move. Mike stood at the top staring down at me. His harsh words echoed in my mind. He yelled at me for being careless. I felt a mix of shock and pain. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. I finally managed to get up. My body hurt, but my heart hurt more. I felt powerless. I knew I should have left him long ago, but I felt trapped. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman I barely recognized. The bruises on my body were nothing compared to the bruises on my soul. I tried to focus on my baby. I wanted to be strong for the little life inside me. But each day with Mike felt heavier. I felt like I was living in a fog. I often sat alone in our small living room, staring at the walls. I wanted to escape, but I didn't know how. Sometimes I would touch my belly and whisper promises to my baby. I would tell them that everything would be okay. I wanted to believe those words myself. But deep down I was scared. I felt like I was losing myself. The days turned into weeks. I tried to act normal around Mike. I cooked his favorite meals and smiled when he walked in. But inside I was crying. I wished for a way out, but fear held me back. One evening Mike came home late. I had dinner waiting on the table. I felt a wave of hope. Maybe tonight would be different. But as he sat down, I noticed his mood was dark. He barely spoke. I tried to make small talk, but he cut me off. "Stop talking so much," he snapped. "You are annoying." My heart sank. I felt the tears welling up. I wanted to run away, but where would I go? After dinner, I cleaned the dishes in silence. I could feel Mike's eyes on me. I tried to ignore him. I focused on the water and the bubbles. It was calming, but not enough. Suddenly, he snapped. "Why can't you do anything right?" he shouted. I froze. I wanted to stand up for myself, but the words got stuck in my throat. Instead, I took a deep breath and kept washing the plates. I heard him get up and walk toward me. I felt the tension build. I braced myself for another fight. "You're worthless," he said. I felt the sting of his words like a slap. I turned to face him. "I am trying my best," I said softly. But my voice trembled. He laughed, but it was not a kind laugh. "Your best is not good enough." Those words cut deep. I wanted to cry, but I felt empty. I turned back to the sink. I wanted to disappear. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I felt my baby kick, and it brought a small sense of comfort. I thought about what kind of life I wanted for my child. I wanted to protect them from pain. But how could I do that when I felt so weak? I knew I had to make a choice. I couldn't keep living like this. I wanted to be strong for my baby. I wanted to be happy and safe. But the thought of leaving Mike filled me with fear. As I lay there in the dark, I thought about my options. I could stay and hope things would change, but deep down I knew they wouldn't. Or I could leave and face the unknown. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. My heart raced. I felt a mix of fear and determination. I wanted to find a way out. I wanted to protect my baby. Maybe I could talk to someone. Maybe I could find help. I had to believe that I was worth more than this pain. I had to find my voice again. The next morning, I woke up with a new sense of purpose. I wanted to change my life. I wanted to break free from the chains Mike had placed around me. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. I saw a woman who was scared but also strong. I promised myself that I would not let Mike win. I would find a way to escape this darkness. I didn't know what the future held, but I was ready to fight. I was ready to take the first step towards freedom. I wanted to reclaim my life, not just for myself but for my baby. I was done being afraid. As I prepared for the day, I felt a spark of hope. For the first time in a long time, I began to believe that I could change my life. I just needed to find the courage to do it. I woke up the next morning, my body sore from the fall. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The memories of the night before weighed heavy on my mind. I felt lost. I knew I needed to heal, but I didn't know how. Days passed and I tried to focus on my recovery. I took it slow, moving around the house carefully. I could feel the bruises on my body, but the emotional pain was worse. Each time I looked in the mirror, I saw the marks of my struggle. I had a doctor's appointment scheduled. I needed to check on the baby. The thought made me nervous. What if something was wrong? What if my fall had harmed them? At the doctor's office, I sat in the waiting room, my heart racing. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. I tried to breathe deeply, but fear gripped me. When the doctor finally called my name, I followed him into the exam room. The doctor was kind. He asked me questions and examined me gently. I held my breath as he performed the ultrasound. Then I saw the screen. There was my baby, small and perfect. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The baby is healthy, the doctor said with a smile. I felt tears prick my eyes. I was grateful, but I also felt a sense of dread. I was not sure I could provide a safe home for my child with Mike in my life. On the way home, I thought about my future. I wanted to protect my baby. I wanted to be a good mother. But how could I do that if I stayed with Mike? That evening, Mike came home late again. I prepared dinner in silence, my mind racing. I wanted to tell him about the appointment, but I feared how he would react. I felt trapped in a cycle of fear and uncertainty. As we sat at the table, I tried to muster the courage to speak. I saw the doctor today, I said quietly. Mike looked up, his expression unreadable. Oh? And? He replied, his tone flat. The baby is okay, I said, forcing a smile. I saw the ultrasound. Good for you, he said dismissively. He turned his attention back to his food. I felt deflated. I wanted to share my joy, but it was met with indifference. After dinner, I retreated to the living room. I sat on the couch, feeling heavy with emotions. I thought about my childhood and the happy moments I once had. Memories of laughter and love filled my mind, but they felt distant now. I remembered playing in the park with my sister Emily. We would swing and slide, our laughter echoing in the air. We were free and happy. I missed those days. I missed the feeling of safety and joy. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the wall. I felt the weight of my choices pressing down on me. I wanted to confront Mike about his behavior, but the fear held me back. I wasn't sure how he would react. Days turned into weeks and I struggled with my emotions. I knew I had to find a way to confront Mike. I couldn't just ignore the pain. But each time I thought about it, my heart raced with fear. One evening, I reached out to Emily. I needed someone to talk to. I sent her a message, pouring out my feelings. I told her about the fall, about Mike's words. I felt a mix of relief and fear as I hit send. Emily replied quickly. She offered support and told me to visit her. I hesitated but felt a spark of hope. Maybe she could help me find my way. The next day, I drove to Emily's house. As I walked inside, I felt a wave of warmth. Her home was bright and inviting, a stark contrast to my own. We hugged tightly and I felt safe in her arms. Over coffee, I opened up about everything. I told her about the fall, the emotional abuse, and the fear that gripped me. I felt lighter as I spoke. Emily listened intently, her eyes filled with concern. I can't believe he did that to you, she said, her voice steady. You need to talk to someone. You deserve help. I nodded, but doubt crept in. What if he finds out? What if he retaliates? I asked, my voice shaking. Emily took my hand. You have to think about your baby. You have to protect them. You can't live like this. Her words struck a chord. I realized I had been living in fear for too long. I needed to take a stand, not just for myself but for my child. That day, I made an appointment for counseling. It felt like a small step, but it was a step forward. I was ready to start healing. In the days that followed, I attended my first counseling session. I sat in a small room, feeling nervous but hopeful. The therapist was kind and patient. I talked about my feelings, my fears, and my experiences with Mike. As I spoke, I felt a weight lift. I began to see the patterns of abuse more clearly. I realized that I was not alone. I had a voice and I needed to use it. With each session, I began to find my strength. I learned to recognize my worth. I was not just a victim, I was a survivor. I wanted to break the cycle of abuse. I started to think about my future. I wanted a safe home for my baby. I wanted to be free from fear. I knew I had to confront Mike, but I needed to prepare myself. I left each session feeling empowered. I was learning to stand up for myself. I was learning that I was worth fighting for. As I walked to my car after one session, I looked up at the sky. I felt a sense of hope. I was ready to take the next step. I was ready to break free. I knew I had to find my voice and use it. I would not let fear control me anymore. I felt a mix of nervousness and excitement as I drove to Emily's house again. I needed her support now more than ever. My counseling sessions were helping me see my situation clearly. I was starting to understand that I wasn't to blame for Mike's behavior. When I arrived, Emily welcomed me with open arms. We sat down with cups of tea and I felt a wave of comfort wash over me. I had been feeling so alone, but with her I felt safe. "Tell me how you've been," she said, her eyes kind and inviting. I hesitated for a moment, but then I began to speak. I told her about my sessions, how I was learning to recognize the signs of abuse. "I feel like I'm waking up," I said. "But I'm still scared. What if Mike finds out I'm talking to you? What if he retaliates?" Emily nodded, understanding my fears. "You have to be careful, but you also have to think about your safety and your baby's safety. You deserve to be happy, Sarah." Her words resonated with me. I wanted to be happy, but the fear of Mike loomed over me like a dark cloud. I knew I needed to make a plan. "Have you thought about getting a safety plan in place?" she asked. I hadn't considered it before, but the idea made sense. I needed to protect myself and my baby. We spent the afternoon discussing different ways I could keep myself safe. Emily suggested I create a small bag with essentials just in case I needed to leave quickly. I felt a sense of empowerment building inside me. I was taking control of my life. Over the next few days, I began to put together my safety plan. I packed a small bag with clothes, important documents, and some money. I hid it in a place where Mike would never think to look. Each time I added something, I felt a little stronger. But the fear still lingered. I was torn between my love for Mike and the reality of his abuse. I often found myself staring at the wall, lost in thought. I wanted to confront him, but my heart raced at the thought. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Mike came home early. I felt my stomach drop. I quickly put on a smile, but inside, I was nervous. He walked into the kitchen and looked at me with a mixture of indifference and anger. "Dinner better be good," he said sharply. I nodded and focused on the stove, trying to keep my hands steady. I felt the tension rise in the room. After dinner, we sat on the couch. I could feel the silence pressing down on us. I wanted to reach out and talk to him about my feelings, but I hesitated. How could I confront him when I was so afraid? "Are you even listening to me?" he snapped suddenly. I flinched at his tone. I turned to face him, my heart racing. "I'm just thinking," I replied quietly. "Thinking about what?" "How to annoy me more," he shot back. I felt tears prick my eyes. I wanted to scream, but I held back. I realized then that I couldn't keep living like this. I needed to find my voice. I needed to confront Mike about his behavior, no matter how scared I felt. I had to protect myself and my baby. The next day, I spoke to my therapist about my fears. I told her about the tension at home and my desire to confront Mike. She encouraged me to practice what I wanted to say. "I want you to feel strong when you speak to him," she said. "You deserve to express your feelings." I took her advice to heart. I spent the next few nights practicing my words in front of the mirror. I wanted to be clear and strong. I wanted to tell Mike that his behavior was unacceptable. Finally, the day came when I felt ready to confront him. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I took a deep breath and found Mike sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady despite my nerves. He looked up, surprised. "About what?" "About us," I said, choosing my words carefully. "I need to talk about how you treat me." His expression changed. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I feel scared when you yell at me. I feel worthless when you insult me," I said, my heart racing. He scoffed. "You're being dramatic. I'm just trying to help you." "Help me? By putting me down?" I replied, feeling more confident. "I need you to understand that your words hurt me." He frowned, but I pushed on. "I want to be happy. I want our baby to grow up in a loving home. But I can't do that if you keep treating me this way. His face darkened. You think you can just change me? I'm not trying to change you, I said, my voice firm. I just want respect. I want to feel safe. He stared at me, and for a moment I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he would listen. But then he laughed, a cold, harsh laugh. You think I'm going to change? You're dreaming. In that moment, I felt a rush of anger. I realized that I had been living in fear for too long. I was tired of his manipulation. I stood up straight and said, I deserve better than this, Mike. I deserve to be treated with kindness. He glared at me, and I could see the anger boiling beneath the surface. I felt a shiver of fear, but I stood my ground. I'm not going to let you control me anymore. I turned and walked away, my heart racing. I felt both terrified and empowered. I had spoken my truth, and that was a step forward. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew I had to keep moving forward. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I felt a mix of emotions. I was scared of Mike's reaction, but I also felt proud of myself. I had found my voice. I was ready to stand up for myself and my baby. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the day lift. I knew I still had a long way to go, but I was determined to keep fighting. I wanted to break free from the cycle of abuse. I wanted to create a safe and loving home for my child. I was ready to take the next step, no matter how difficult it might be. I was ready to reclaim my life and my happiness. After my confrontation with Mike, the atmosphere in the house changed. I felt a mix of fear and relief. I had spoken my truth, but now I waited for his reaction. I could sense the tension in the air. Mike was quiet, and his silence was unsettling. I tried to focus on my counseling sessions. I needed to keep my mind clear. Each week, I shared my feelings with my therapist. I spoke about my fears, my hopes, and the changes I wanted to make. I felt like I was slowly unraveling the truth about my relationship with Mike. During one session, I shared my feelings about the confrontation. I told him how his words hurt me, I said, my voice shaking. But he just laughed at me. My therapist nodded, understanding. It's common for abusers to dismiss your feelings, she explained. They want to keep control over you. But you are taking steps to break free from that control. Her words gave me strength. I began to see the patterns of manipulation more clearly. Mike had hidden his true self behind a mask of charm. I started to recognize the signs of emotional abuse. I began to understand that I was not alone in this fight. One evening, I found myself sitting on the couch, lost in thought. I felt the urge to confront Mike again, but I hesitated. I feared his anger. But I knew I had to be brave. I needed to stand up for myself and my baby. As I sat there, I recalled moments from our early days together. I remembered the laughter we shared, the dreams we had. But those memories felt distant now, overshadowed by the pain. I felt like I was living in two separate worlds, one full of love and another full of fear. The next day, I decided to go through some old photos. I wanted to remind myself of the happiness we once had. I flipped through the pages of our photo album, but as I looked at the smiling faces, I felt a lump in my throat. The joy in those pictures felt fake now. Mike had changed, and so had I. I found pictures from our wedding day. I was radiant in my white dress, and Mike looked handsome in his suit. In those moments, I felt loved. But as I studied the photographs, I realized that love should not hurt. Love should not come with fear. I closed the album, feeling a wave of sadness. I knew I had to confront Mike again. I needed to talk about the emotional abuse, not just for myself but for our child. I wanted to break the cycle. That evening, I approached him as he sat on the couch watching TV. Can we talk? I asked, my voice steady but soft. He glanced at me, his expression unreadable. About what? He replied, not bothering to look away from the screen. About how you treat me, I said, taking a deep breath. I want to discuss the way you speak to me. It's hurtful. He turned off the TV and faced me. You're still going on about this? He said, annoyance creeping into his voice. I told you, you're being dramatic. I'm not being dramatic, I insisted, my heart racing. I'm trying to explain how your words affect me. I want us to have a healthy relationship for our child. He rolled his eyes. You think we have a problem? You're the one who needs to change. I felt anger rising within me, but I took a deep breath to calm myself. I know I have to change, but I want you to change too. I want to feel safe and respected in our home. Mike's expression hardened. You think you can just demand respect? You're lucky to have me. His words struck me like a slap. I felt my heart sink. I realized I was facing a wall. No matter how much I spoke, he refused to see my pain. In that moment, clarity washed over me. I understood that Mike would not change. I realized I had been trying to fix something that was broken beyond repair. I had been hoping for a return to the love we once had, but the love I remembered was gone. I left the room, feeling defeated but also determined. I had to protect myself and my baby. I needed to break free from Mike's control. I couldn't let his words define me anymore. That night, I lay in bed, feeling the weight of my decision. I thought about my future. I wanted a safe home for my child, a place filled with love and acceptance. I wanted to create a life free from fear. The next day, I met with my therapist again. I shared my feelings about the confrontation with Mike in my newfound clarity. I realized now that I cannot wait for him to change, I said, my voice steady. I have to be the one to make a change. My therapist smiled. That's an important realization, Sarah. It shows you are growing stronger. You are recognizing your own worth. I nodded, feeling a sense of empowerment. I was beginning to understand that I deserved a life free from abuse. I wanted to break the cycle for my child. As I continued my sessions, I grew more confident. I learned to express my feelings without fear. I began to set boundaries in my mind. I realized that I was not responsible for Mike's actions. I had the right to protect myself and my baby. But even with this newfound strength, I still feared confrontation. I knew I had to make a plan. I began to think about the next steps. I wanted to create a safe exit strategy, but I still felt anxious about leaving. One day, as I was going through my bag of essentials, I found a notebook. I had started to write down my feelings and thoughts. It was a way to process everything I was going through. I decided to use it to outline my plan. I wrote down the steps I needed to take to leave. I thought about where I could go. I wanted to reach out to Emily and other friends. I needed a support system. The idea of leaving still scared me, but I felt ready to take action. I realized that I had a choice. I could stay and continue to live in fear, or I could take the leap and fight for my freedom. I chose freedom. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I had a plan and I was determined to follow through. I would not let fear hold me back any longer. I was ready to reclaim my life and create a safe home for my child. I closed my eyes, filled with hope. I knew the journey ahead would not be easy, but I was ready to face it. I was ready to take the first step toward a brighter future. I felt a mix of fear and determination as I moved through my days with Mike. I had made my plan, but taking action was a different story. Each moment felt heavy. I could feel the tension rising in the house. Mike seemed more on edge than usual. I knew I had to be careful. One evening, Mike came home later than usual. I had spent the day packing my essentials, feeling a sense of urgency. I was almost ready to leave, but I still hesitated. What if he found out? What if he reacted violently? As he walked in, I could tell something was off. He slammed the door and stormed into the living room. I felt my heart race. I approached him slowly, trying to keep my voice calm. "Hi, how was your day?" I asked, forcing a smile. He scoffed. "It was long. I don't want to talk about it." I nodded, feeling the weight of his mood. I didn't want to push him. I went back to the kitchen to finish dinner, but I could feel his eyes on me. It made me uneasy. After dinner, we sat on opposite ends of the couch. The silence felt thick. I wanted to reach out and talk about my plan, but fear gripped me. I needed to wait for the right moment. I glanced at him, and I could see his tension growing. Suddenly, he turned to me. "What's wrong with you?" he snapped. "You're acting weird." I felt my stomach drop. "I'm just tired," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Tired of what?" he asked, his voice rising. "You do nothing all day." His words hit me like a punch. I wanted to stand up for myself, but fear held me back. "I'm just trying to keep things together," I said quietly. He laughed, but it was cruel. "Keep things together? You're a mess." I felt tears prick my eyes. I hated feeling this way. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him how wrong he was. But I knew that would only make things worse. After a long, tense silence, Mike stood up. "You're such a burden," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "I can't take it anymore." My heart raced. I had to get out of this situation. I felt the walls closing in on me. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice shaking. He stepped closer, his face inches from mine. "If you don't shape up, I'll take the baby away from you." "You think I can't do that?" His words cut deep. I felt a surge of panic. "You wouldn't do that," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Try me," he replied, his eyes cold. That moment was a breaking point for me. I realized I couldn't stay in this environment any longer. I needed to leave now. I couldn't let fear dictate my life or the life of my baby. I waited until he went to bed that night, my heart racing. I felt a sense of urgency driving me. I quietly moved around the house, gathering my things. I packed the essentials I had prepared, making sure to keep it as quiet as possible. As I was putting the last few items in my bag, I heard Mike's voice from the bedroom. "What are you doing?" he called out. I froze in fear. "Just getting some things," I replied, trying to sound calm. "You better not be packing to leave," he shouted. I felt my heart race. "I'm not leaving," I said, trying to sound convincing. I finished packing and silently slipped my bag into the car. I felt a mix of adrenaline and fear. I knew this was my chance. I needed to act fast. When I returned inside, Mike was still in bed, but I could hear him tossing and turning. I took a deep breath and decided to leave while he was distracted. I crept out to the car, my heart pounding in my chest. Once I was in the car, I felt a rush of adrenaline. I started the engine and slowly drove away from the house. As I turned onto the main road, I felt the weight of fear lift slightly. I was finally taking control of my life. I drove to Emily's house, my mind racing with thoughts. What would I say? How would she react? I felt a mix of fear and hope. When I arrived, I parked quickly and rushed to the door. Emily answered almost immediately, her face lighting up with concern. "What's wrong?" she asked, noticing my expression. "I need help," I said, my voice shaking. "I think I'm ready to leave Mike for good." Emily stepped aside and let me in. "Of course, come in. You're safe here." As I sat on her couch, I felt a wave of relief. I was finally free from the tension and fear of my old life. I shared everything with her, the confrontation, my fears, and my decision to leave. "I'm so proud of you," Emily said, her eyes filled with support. "You deserve to be happy and safe." I felt tears well up in my eyes. "I'm scared, Emily. What if he finds me? What if he retaliates?" She took my hands in hers. "We'll figure it out together. You're not alone in this. I'll help you get a restraining order if you need it." The thought of a restraining order made me feel stronger. I realized I had the power to protect myself and my baby. I didn't have to live in fear anymore. Over the next few days, I settled into Emily's home. It felt strange but comforting to be in a safe space. I began to feel my strength returning. I attended my counseling sessions regularly and focused on healing. I talked to Emily about my fears and my hopes for the future. She listened and encouraged me. Together, we made a plan to ensure my safety. I began to feel more empowered with each passing day. But even as I felt stronger, a part of me still feared Mike. I knew he would not take my leaving lightly. I had to be prepared for whatever might come next. One night, as I lay in bed, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was safe and I was starting to reclaim my life. I thought about my baby and the future I wanted to create. I wanted them to grow up in a world filled with love and support. I closed my eyes, feeling hopeful for the first time in a long time. I had taken the first steps toward freedom. I was ready to face the challenges ahead and build a new life for myself and my child. I was determined to make it a life worth living. I woke up the next morning feeling different. I was in Emily's guest room, surrounded by the comforting smell of coffee. I could hear her in the kitchen, humming to herself. It felt good to be in a safe space, but the fear of what Mike might do still lingered in the back of my mind. I got out of bed and walked to the kitchen. Emily turned to me with a warm smile. "Good morning. How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in a long time," I replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. She poured me a cup of coffee and handed it to me. "I'm glad. We have a lot to discuss today." I nodded, knowing she was right. I needed to confront my feelings about leaving Mike and what that meant for my future. I know I have to think about my next steps. "I'm just so scared," I admitted. Emily sat down across from me. "It's okay to be scared, but remember you're not alone anymore. You have options." I took a deep breath. I have thought about what it would mean to leave for good. I can't keep living in fear for myself or for my baby. "Exactly," Emily encouraged. "You deserve to feel safe and happy." We talked about setting up a plan for my safety. Emily suggested I get a restraining order against Mike. The idea made me anxious, but it also made me feel empowered. "I want to protect myself and my baby," I said firmly. After breakfast, we sat at Emily's kitchen table and started writing down what I needed to do. We made a list of all the necessary steps: contacting a lawyer, gathering evidence, and reaching out to the local domestic violence hotline. As I wrote, I felt a mix of fear and determination. I was finally taking control of my life. I knew I had to stand up for myself and my baby. Later that day, Emily helped me contact a lawyer who specialized in domestic violence cases. I felt nervous as I dialed the number. What if they can't help me? I thought. But I knew I had to try. The lawyer's office was friendly and understanding. I explained my situation, and they assured me that I had options. You've already taken the first step by leaving, the lawyer said. We'll help you protect yourself. I felt a wave of relief. The more I talked about my situation, the more I realized that I had the power to change my life. I wasn't just a victim, I was a survivor. After the call, I sat down with Emily again. I feel like I'm finally taking control, I said, my voice filled with determination. But I'm still scared about what Mike will do. I understand, Emily said, her eyes full of compassion. But you have to remember that you are stronger than you think. It's time to focus on your safety and your baby. As the days went by, I continued to work on my safety plan. I gathered evidence of Mike's emotional abuse. I saved messages and wrote down instances where he had threatened me. Each piece of evidence felt like a step toward reclaiming my power. One afternoon, I was sitting at the table with Emily, going through my notes, when I suddenly felt a wave of sadness. I keep thinking about what I'm leaving behind, I said, my voice shaking. I loved him once. I wanted us to be a family. Emily reached out and took my hand. It's okay to grieve that loss. You can love someone and still recognize that they are hurting you. I nodded, feeling tears well up in my eyes. I just want to protect my baby. I want to create a safe environment. Emily squeezed my hand. You are doing that. You are breaking the cycle. You're choosing a better life for both of you. As I sat there, I began to feel a sense of clarity. I knew I had to shift my focus from what I was leaving behind to what I was moving toward. I wanted to build a life filled with love and support for my child. That evening, I attended another counseling session. I shared my progress with my therapist. I have a plan now, I said, feeling a sense of pride. I'm working on getting a restraining order. That's a significant step, Sarah, my therapist said, her voice encouraging. It shows you are taking your safety seriously. You deserve to feel secure. As we talked, I realized how much I had grown. I was no longer the scared woman who had fallen down the stairs. I was becoming stronger every day. I was learning to stand up for myself and my baby. After the session, I returned to Emily's house feeling empowered. I knew I had a long way to go, but I was ready to face the challenges ahead. I wanted to create a safe future, one where my child could thrive. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a mix of emotions. I was scared, but I was also hopeful. I thought about my baby and the love I wanted to give them. I wanted to be the kind of mother who fought for her child's safety and happiness. The next few days passed quickly as I continued to prepare. I reached out to the domestic violence hotline for additional resources. They provided me with information on local shelters, legal aid, and support groups. I felt grateful for their guidance. I also began to think about how I wanted to tell my family about my situation. I knew I needed their support, but I was still nervous about how they would react. I decided to call my sister to share what I had been going through. When I spoke to her, I could hear the concern in her voice. I'm so sorry you've been going through this, she said. You should have told me sooner. I didn't want to worry you, I replied, my voice trembling. But I'm finally ready to take action. She offered her support and promised to be there for me. You're strong, Sarah. You're doing the right thing. Her words gave me strength. I realized that I wasn't alone in this fight. I had a support system, and together we could face whatever challenges lay ahead. As I prepared to take the next steps in my journey, I felt a sense of clarity. I was ready to protect myself and my baby. I was ready to break free from the chains of fear and emotional abuse. I closed my eyes that night filled with hope. I was determined to create a new life, one filled with love and safety. I was ready to embrace the future, no matter how uncertain it felt. I knew I could do this. I would fight for my happiness and my child's happiness. I was ready to reclaim my life. I woke up the next morning with a sense of urgency. I felt ready to take the next step in my plan. I had been preparing for this moment for weeks, and now it was time to act. I needed to escape for good. Emily was already awake when I came into the kitchen. She made coffee and smiled at me. Are you ready for today? She asked, sensing my nervous energy. I nodded, though my stomach twisted with anxiety. I think so. I just want to make sure everything goes smoothly. We'll take it one step at a time, she reassured me. Just remember that you're stronger than you think. After breakfast, I took a deep breath and gathered my belongings. I double-checked my bag, making sure I had everything I needed: clothes, important documents, and some money. I looked around the room, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. What if he finds out? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He won't if we're careful, Emily said firmly. We've got this. I felt a rush of adrenaline as we headed out the door. I could feel the weight of my old life lifting off my shoulders. I was finally taking control. We drove towards my house and my heart raced with each passing mile. I could feel the anxiety rising within me. What if Mike was home? What if he confronted me? I took a deep breath and reminded myself of my strength. I had to stay focused. When we arrived, I parked a few blocks away. I wanted to keep my distance in case Mike was around. Let's go over the plan one more time, Emily suggested. I nodded. I'll go inside quickly and grab the last of my things. I'll be in and out. Remember to stay calm, Emily said. If you feel unsafe at any point, just call me. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. My heart pounded as I walked towards the house. Each step felt heavy, but I pushed through the fear. I was ready to reclaim my life. As I approached the front door, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. I hesitated for a moment, but then I opened the door and stepped inside. The house felt cold and empty, a stark contrast to the warmth I felt at Emily's. I quickly moved through the living room, my eyes scanning for anything I might have forgotten. The memories flooded back, but I pushed them aside. I had to focus on the present. I made my way to the bedroom where I had packed most of my things. As I gathered the last of my belongings, I heard a noise. My heart stopped. I turned to see the front door open. Mike walked in, his expression shifting from surprise to anger as he saw me. "What are you doing here?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the house. I felt my stomach drop. "I was just getting some things," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "You're not going anywhere. You think you can just leave?" Panic surged through me. I had to stay calm. "I'm just taking what's mine," I said, trying to sound firm. He laughed, but it was cruel. "You think you can just walk out? You're nothing without me." I felt a surge of anger. "I am not nothing. I deserve to be happy and safe." His expression darkened. "You think you can take my child away from me?" I felt a chill run down my spine. "I'm not taking anyone away from you. I just want to create a safe life for our baby." He stepped closer, his eyes filled with rage. "You're making a big mistake, Sarah." In that moment, I felt a rush of fear, but I also felt a surge of determination. I had to protect myself and my child. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," I said, my voice steady. Mike's expression shifted slightly, as if he was surprised by my confidence. "You think you can just leave me? You have no idea what I'm capable of." I could feel my heart racing, but I stood my ground. "I know exactly what you're capable of. And that's why I have to go." I grabbed my bag and turned to leave, but he blocked my path. "You're not going anywhere," he shouted, his voice rising. I felt a rush of adrenaline. I had to get out. "I'll call the police if I have to," I said, my voice firm. For a moment, we stood there, locked in a standoff. I could see the anger in his eyes, but I also saw a flicker of uncertainty. "Get out of my way," I said, my voice steady. As I pushed past him, I felt a wave of fear, but I also felt empowered. I was taking control of my life. I rushed out the door and down the steps, my heart racing. Emily was waiting in the car, her eyes wide with concern. "What happened?" she asked as I jumped in, my breath coming in quick bursts. "Let's go," I shouted, and Emily quickly pulled away from the curb. As we drove away, I felt a mix of fear and relief. I had faced Mike and I had stood my ground. But I knew this wasn't over. "Are you okay?" Emily asked, glancing at me. "I will be," I replied, my voice shaky. "I just need to process everything." We drove to a nearby park to catch my breath. I needed a moment to collect myself. My mind raced with thoughts and emotions. I felt scared but also empowered. I had taken a huge step toward freedom. "We need to talk about what happens next," Emily said, her voice steady. I nodded, trying to focus. "I need to get the restraining order as soon as possible." Emily agreed. "We can do that together. You're not alone in this." As we sat in the car, I felt a sense of clarity. I had faced Mike and I had survived. I was ready to take the next steps to protect myself and my baby. After a little while, I took a deep breath and said, "I'm ready to make this work. I won't let him control me anymore." Emily smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "That's the spirit. You're stronger than you know." I felt a rush of determination. I was ready to fight for my future and my child's future. I would not let fear hold me back any longer. As we drove away from the park, I felt a sense of hope. I was on the path to reclaiming my life, and I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. I would protect my baby and create a safe, loving home. I knew I had a long journey ahead, but I was prepared to take it one step at a time. I was determined to break free from the chains of abuse and start anew. I was ready to embrace the future with strength and courage. After the confrontation with Mike, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. I had faced my fears, but I knew the journey was far from over. I was living with Emily, and I was grateful for her support. She helped me feel safe and encouraged me to focus on healing. As the days went by, I started to settle into a new routine. I attended counseling sessions regularly, which helped me process everything I had been through. I talked about my feelings, my fears, and my hopes for the future. I was beginning to understand that healing would take time, but I was committed to the process. One evening, as I sat on Emily's couch, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. I was approaching my due date, and I couldn't help but worry about what would happen when the baby arrived. What if Mike tried to come after us? "Are you okay?" Emily asked, noticing my expression. "I'm just thinking about the baby," I admitted. "I want to keep them safe, but I'm scared." She nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "It's normal to feel that way, especially with everything you've been through. But you're not alone. We will figure this out together." With her support, I began to explore ways to prepare for the baby's arrival. We set up a small nursery in Emily's spare room. I found a crib and painted the walls in soft colors. The process made me feel hopeful. I wanted my child to have a warm and loving environment. I also began attending prenatal classes. It was nerve-wracking at first, but I quickly found comfort in sharing my experiences with other mothers-to-be. We discussed our fears and excitement about becoming parents. I felt a sense of community and support, which helped ease my anxiety. As my due date approached, I made a list of people I wanted in my support system. I reached out to friends and family, sharing my plans and asking for their help. I wanted to surround myself with people who cared about me and my baby. Meanwhile, I also took steps to ensure my safety. I worked with my lawyer to finalize the restraining order against Mike. It felt empowering to know I was taking control of my situation. I wanted to protect myself and my child at all costs. One day, I received a call from my lawyer. "The restraining order has been approved," she said. "You are legally protected now." I felt a rush of relief. It was a significant step toward feeling safe. I immediately called Emily to share the news. "I did it. I have the restraining order." "That's amazing," she exclaimed, her excitement contagious. "You're doing everything right. You're building a new life for yourself and your baby." With each passing day, I felt stronger. I was learning to stand up for myself and what I needed. I was no longer the scared woman I had been. I was becoming a mother, and I was determined to create a loving home for my child. As the months went by, I began to feel a sense of joy and anticipation. I decorated the nursery with soft toys and blankets. I imagined all the happy moments I would share with my baby. I was excited to be a mother, and I wanted to give my child a life filled with love and safety. The day finally came when I went into labor. I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. I called Emily, and she rushed over to support me. We made our way to the hospital together, my heart racing with every contraction. Once we arrived, the staff welcomed us with warmth. Emily stayed by my side, holding my hand and encouraging me. I focused on the moment, knowing I was about to bring a new life into the world. After hours of hard work, I finally held my baby in my arms. Tears filled my eyes as I gazed down at the tiny face. It was a girl, and she was perfect. "Welcome to the world," I whispered, feeling a rush of love wash over me. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of peace. I had fought so hard to get to this point, and now I was finally here. I was a mother, and I would do everything in my power to protect my child. As I looked at my baby, I knew I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. I was determined to raise her in a safe and loving environment, far away from the pain of my past. I would not let fear dictate our lives. Over the next few weeks, I settled into the routine of motherhood. There were sleepless nights and endless diaper changes, but I welcomed every moment. I found joy in the little things like her first smile and the sound of her laughter. Emily continued to be a strong support system. She helped me adjust to my new life and provided a listening ear whenever I needed to vent. I felt grateful to have her by my side. As I reflected on my journey, I realized how far I had come. I had faced my fears, left an abusive relationship, and welcomed a new life into the world. I was proud of myself for my strength and resilience. I also began to think about the future. I wanted to create a life where my daughter could thrive. I wanted her to know that she was loved and safe. I began to set goals for myself, both as a mother and as an individual. I started looking into job opportunities that would allow me to support my daughter. I wanted to be independent and provide for her, but I also wanted to continue my healing journey. I knew I had to prioritize my well-being to be the best mother I could be. As I took these steps, I felt a renewed sense of hope. I was building a new life for myself and my baby, one filled with love, support, and safety. I was ready to embrace the future, no matter what challenges lay ahead. I closed my eyes each night, feeling grateful for the strength I had found within myself. I was a survivor, and I was ready to create a beautiful life for my daughter. Together, we would face the world, and I would always protect her with everything I had. As I settled into my new life as a mother, I felt a sense of purpose. Each day was filled with new challenges, but I welcomed every moment with my daughter. I named her Lily, a name that symbolized purity and new beginnings. I wanted her to grow up knowing she was loved and cherished. The first few months were not easy. I faced sleepless nights and endless diaper changes, but I also experienced joy unlike anything I had ever known. The sound of Lily's laughter brought light into my life. I felt overwhelmed with love every time I held her close. As I adjusted to motherhood, I began to think about my future. I wanted to provide for Lily and create a safe environment for her. I started looking for job opportunities that would allow me to balance work and being a mother. I knew I needed to be independent to build a stable life for us. One day, I saw a job opening at a local community center. They were looking for someone to help plan activities for children. I felt a spark of excitement. It was a perfect fit for me. I decided to apply, hoping to use my skills to make a positive impact on other children's lives. I spent the evening writing my resume and cover letter. I reflected on my journey and everything I had overcome. I was proud of my resilience and strength. I knew I wanted to share my story with others to show them that they could also find hope and healing. A few days later, I received a call for an interview. I was thrilled and nervous at the same time. I prepared as much as I could, thinking about what I wanted to say and how I wanted to present myself. I wanted to show them that I was ready to make a difference. The day of the interview arrived, and I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. I dressed carefully, putting on a simple but professional outfit. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that I was capable. I had faced worse challenges and come out stronger. When I arrived at the community center, I was greeted warmly by the staff. They seemed friendly and welcoming, which eased my nerves. During the interview, I spoke passionately about my experiences and my desire to work with children. I wanted to create a safe and fun environment for them, just like I wanted for Lily. As I left the interview, I felt a sense of hope. I knew I had done my best, and no matter the outcome, I was proud of myself for taking this step. I was building a new life for Lily, and I was determined to make it a good one. Days turned into weeks, and I continued to focus on motherhood and my job search. I spent time with Lily, taking her to the park and reading her stories. I loved watching her grow and learn. Each new milestone filled my heart with joy. One afternoon, I received a call from the community center. They offered me the job. I couldn't believe it. I felt a rush of excitement and gratitude. I was finally taking a step toward independence, and I couldn't wait to get started. When I shared the news with Emily, she was overjoyed. "You did it. I knew you could," she exclaimed, hugging me tightly. "This is just the beginning, Sarah. You're going to be amazing." Her support meant the world to me. I knew I wouldn't have made it this far without her encouragement. I felt grateful for the people in my life who had stood by me during my darkest moments. As I prepared for my first day at the community center, I felt a mix of excitement and nerves. I wanted to make a positive impact on the children's lives while also being a good mother to Lily. I knew I could find a balance, and I was determined to try. On my first day, I arrived early, eager to meet my new colleagues and get a feel for the place. Everyone was warm and welcoming, and I quickly felt at home. I was given a tour of the facility, and I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. I was ready to make a difference. As I worked with the children, I felt a joy I hadn't experienced in a long time. I loved planning activities, playing games, and watching them learn and grow. I felt fulfilled in a way that I had been missing for years. I was finally using my experiences to help others. During my breaks, I thought about my journey. I had faced so many challenges, but I had come out stronger on the other side. I was creating a life filled with love for Lily. I was determined to break the cycle of abuse and provide her with a safe and nurturing environment. As the months went by, I continued to grow in my role at the community center. I formed connections with the children and staff, and I felt like I was making a real difference. I was proud of the work I was doing, and I knew it would positively impact the lives of many families in our community. I also stayed committed to my healing journey. I continued attending counseling sessions, focusing on my growth and well-being. I wanted to ensure that I was the best version of myself for Lily. I knew I had to prioritize my mental health to be a good mother. One evening, as I rocked Lily to sleep, I reflected on how far I had come. I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was no longer living in fear. I was building a life filled with love, support, and hope. I whispered a promise to Lily as she slept in my arms. "You are loved, and I will always protect you." I knew I would do everything in my power to create a safe and happy home for her. With each passing day, I felt more empowered. I was reclaiming my life, and I was ready to embrace the future. I wanted to share my story with others to inspire them to find their strength and break free from their own struggles. As I closed my eyes that night, I felt a sense of hope for the future. I was building a new life for myself and my daughter, one filled with love and resilience. I was proud to be a mother, and I was ready to face whatever came next. Together, we would thrive, and I would ensure that Lily always knew her worth.